and welcome back to the program. You're listening to Sacred Spacer in CJUM 101.5 FM out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And we're sitting here this morning having a fly-on-the-wall Skype visit with Meria Heller, who's known as the Mouth That Roars. She's been podcasting since July 2000 on every topic known to man. And you can check out her show at Meria.net. So let's get back to my, I don't want to say interview, I want to say my visit with Meria. Enjoy. You're also an ordained minister.
Well, yeah, I've been an ordained minister for years. I've done a lot of weddings, a lot of baptisms, a lot of funerals, actually. And if I had my preference, I really like doing funerals, especially when they're people I know and people in the audience can actually see the spirit of the person whose body is supposedly lying there. It kind of adds a little more excitement to the funeral.
Yeah, this is another similarity. I never met Sun Bear, but I know a little bit about him. I traveled with an old elder for years until he passed, and I've known a number of medicine people and still walk with a number of them, go to international elders conferences. We kind of traveled in the Red Road, as it were. How did you hook up with Sun Bear and begin to teach the Universal Medicine Wheel?
Well, it was another series of synchronicities. I had gone into a used bookstore. I was living in New York at the time. I'd gone into a used bookstore when a book fell off the shelf, as they often do, into my hand, and the book was called The Path of Power by someone named Sun Bear. So I knew, because it literally fell off the shelf, that I needed to buy the book. So I bought the book, I took it home, but I did not have any time to even open it because I was leaving the next day to go down to Florida to visit my sisters. And when I got there, they told me about this little spiritual community of spiritualists called Casadega. And we went and spent the day there, and you have women doing channeling and, gift shops and all this stuff. And I went in the gift shop, and they had this absolutely beautiful crystal necklace. And I was looking at the necklace and looking at the necklace, and my sister said, just buy it already. And when I bought it, it came with a little legend, but I just folded the legend into the little sack it came in and didn't even open it till I got back to New York. But when I got back to New York and I opened it, the legend, the little folded piece of paper, said, this crystal necklace is based on the medicine wheel taught by Sun Bear. And of course I said that name. So I went looking for the book, and I saw it was the same book. The next week I got a magazine that's no longer in print. I think it was called Connecting Link magazine. And they said that Sun Bear was coming to upstate New York to teach a 3-day seminar. Well, I knew that I didn't need a hammer to fall on my head, that I had to be there because of what had already happened. And interestingly enough, when I got to upstate New York and turned into the place where he was doing his workshop, there was a little sign on the ground that said Casadega. So the town there was actually the winter retreat of the spiritualist in Florida where I had bought the necklace.
Wow.
So I studied with him those 3 days, and it was like when I first resaw the medicine wheel, my entire body started shaking, and I just burst out crying. It was just such a recognition on a soul level, that imprint. It was such a cellular imprint that I really knew I had finally come home. And I had worked with Sun Bear a few times after that in New York, and he had always asked me to go and apprentice with him. But I told him that, your dream isn't my dream. And the one thing I loved about him was he was the kind of teacher that honored your own vision and your own journey. It wasn't my way or the highway.
Right.
And then several years had passed, and Sun Bear died, I want to say about 18, 19 years ago.
Yeah.
And up until that time, I had been teaching his 36-stone Ojibwa medicine wheel. And after he crossed over through a series of waking visions and dreams, he came to me and said, take the wheel to the next level. And over a series of about 6 months, what I got was the 13-stone medicine wheel, which is the universal medicine wheel. It's not only simpler, but it also makes somebody proactive working their spirituality and opened it up where it's available to all people of all colors, all races, all sexualities, all religions. And Sun Bear ended up being one of the spirit teachers honored on the Universal Medicine Wheel.
Nice. And that's when spirit hits like that, you can't not but do what it's directing you to do.
Absolutely. Well, the same thing happened when I moved my show to the internet. I originally started out doing a fun show. I'd DJ some records. I'd talk about what it was like in the 60s, disco, and throw in some astrology, a very little news. And then a few months of that, George Bush announced he was running for president. And the voice very clearly said to me, politics and environment, put it on your refrigerator because that's where your show has to go. Because I knew as an environmentalist that if Bush got in on the time clock we have on not destroying our environment for humans to be able to live on the planet, I would have to learn everything I never wanted to know to try to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
And that's how my show took the major turn for what it is. So I had to back into a lot of the ugly conspiracies, Illuminati, all the things no one wants to know. So the past 13 years have been an unbelievable learning curve for me.
Yeah. Now, it's kind of interesting. Why do you think so few of the people in the media will talk about those kinds of things? And kind of a sidebar to that, because you do talk about the things that people don't want to hear, have you ever been targeted for expressing your opinions?
I've been targeted since I'm 16, so
you're used to it.
That's so much for that question.
Yeah.
The thing I think that frustrates a lot of people about me is that I truly have no fear. I have achieved through many different techniques cosmic oneness. I've been out of body. I've had near-death experiences. So once you've experienced that, you truly do realize that nothing here is real. Yep. It's all illusion. So I really don't care. What are they going to do? Kill my body? My father used to say, don't be afraid of the dead. Be afraid of the living. They're the ones that can hurt you, he said, but they can never touch your soul.
Yeah, so true.
So if you can lose your fear, and I think death is the ultimate fear for everybody, you can then fully live your life the way you want. My life, I live my life by my rules, not by what the world says I need to do or not to do.
Yeah, and see, that's the kind of similarity that I was seeing between the two of us, because I've been the same way since I was, again, about 12. And I, too, have had a near-death experience. I've had 3 grand mal seizures. And my first one, my mother has been an epileptic for years, but I've never really had the amount of episodes that she's had. But I've had 3, what I call the big ones. But the first one was the big one, where I'd actually, according to my dad, who was alive at the time, said that I had stopped breathing. He was trying to give me mouth to mouth, but he couldn't even, I guess I tensed up so much I couldn't even open my jaw. And he eventually did with a metal spoon. Wrecked a couple of my teeth, and for about the next month and a half to 2 months after, I could hardly even open my jaw. But he got me breathing again, and on that first one, I came back with what I call the profound peace. Because you feel that oneness, and like you say, once you have that type of experience, there is no longer any fear of death.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I know for myself that once when I was out there, even though I had a dear friend working with me to control the experiment, I did not want to come back into this consciousness.
Yeah.
So she had to work fast and furious, or she would have lost me, because I can tell you my body was certainly coding in the chair.
Jeez.
But where I was at, just the sound of her voice was annoying. And when I did finally come back into my body, the first thing I did was get up and kick the wall, and I screamed, "This is bullshit." I kicked the desk. I said, "This is bullshit." I threw a chair over. I said, "This is bullshit." I said, "None of this is real."
Yeah.
And that was such a huge awakening for me. I want to say I was probably in my mid 30s when I had that major experience. And when you really realize just how huge your oversoul is and your connection to the universe, you realize that all of this is truly just a construct. It really is moving an avatar around within a virtual reality game.
Yeah. This brings me to a question because I get into this, I wouldn't say a lot, but with certain people, and I'm always putting my foot in my mouth or saying things I shouldn't say. But what do you think of, because when I had my experience and felt that oneness, my thought afterwards, I didn't have it then, of course, but after years after, was that once you're there for good, why would you ever split apart yourself to come back down here? When people talk about past lives and all that sort of thing, I kind of question that a bit. So my question to you, do you believe in reincarnation, and are there past lives?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, to answer that question, I don't know, did you ever see that film, What Dreams May Come, with Robin Williams?
Yep.
Well, that kind of answers your question. Why do you come back? For fun. Because you get bored, because you want to do it again, because you realize that you live forever and the little time you spend down here on this planet passes like a second to you. So, as far as reincarnation, in past lives, because I do so much psychic work and consultations with people, what I am finding the past year, and usually I don't recommend people look at their past lives, but what I am finding the past year is almost everybody I read for, their current life right now is being strongly affected by one of their past lives. And once I let them know what that past life is, everything shifts for them. The goal of reincarnation, besides having fun, is once you get to a certain level, you've gone around enough and hopefully learned each time and bettered yourself, you don't have to come back. You can choose to come back, but primarily just to come in as a teacher. I don't have to go through the whole bullshit of life, as I call it.